Well, speaking of appeal and creativity as being the content part of it, are there creative avenues or creative content that South Asians or South Asian Americans are either leading or driving that we all should really know about if we don't know already?
Hmm. I do think media, I'm seeing greater interest, and I do think that's because a generation that's slightly older than me have been on television and sort of made it okay for that to happen, right? So I
Right.
think media, I am fascinated by what's happening in Hollywood with the telling of our stories.
Hmm.
Most recently, Mindy Kaling and Never Have I Ever. Um, but we've even shows like Rami, who's Egyptian American, but there's a lot of overlap with the South Asian experience. I think this reality docu-series, Indian Matchmaking, and the reaction to it
Sure.
has been fascinating. So I've been watching Hollywood with interest just because what you see is as a generation comes of age, they have agency to tell our stories in a way that our parents did not, right? So what you're doing here, what we're having a conversation, um, I would dare say, your father, your mother, my father probably would have had way more interesting conversations than you and I are right now. No offense to the conversation we're having,
Yeah.
but their experience was so much richer and rooted in struggle and rooted in a journey, and that they didn't get to do a version of what you and I are doing right now is a damn shame, right?
Well, and we're displaying it. They would probably be having this in, Marathi or Assamese, and those conversations would be rich, but they may be, told in a different spin. Are we, as a sort of community, going to get to the point where the stories we are telling also tell of things like trauma or of displacement or of loss, just as equally as we are about the nuances of growing up here in straddling two cultures or whatnot too?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's a really good observation because much of what we're seeing right now is a certain lens, and it's been criticized, right, as being elitist, casteist, North Indian centric or South Indian centric. I mean, that's usually the Assamese people saying it's everyone. Um, so I agree. I think the answer is more storytelling and
Yeah,
not to put the pressure of representing every nuance of South Asian America on one show or one director or one documentary series. Because I can tell you, as someone who's often the only member of a community represented that's not white, right? Forget
yeah,
South Asian. There's no Black people in the room. There's no Latino people in the room. As someone who's found herself in that position over and over, that is a massive burden for one person to bear, and it's an impossible one, right? So my hope is that we start to make space for some of these portrayals of our community, that we seek out almost the what's not represented and what's not told here. I do think with COVID, we are going to have a period of looking back on this period of history and asking how it affected different, I mean, the numbers bear this out, speaking of
sure.
data, right? It has affected different people in disproportionate ways. And there are millions of stories in that in and of itself. I would say what India is going through with COVID right now is millions of stories right now, right? In
Sure.
our extended family alone, there isn't a single house that has been unaffected at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's different from my experience in the US, even though I know a lot of
Right.
people in the US, but it's really different. So my hope is that we get to a place of more stories, not putting the burden on the one story to get into all of these other aspects.